at first it sounded like, why not? Because if I had to answer the same question, what made Rhea Singha win the competition? Hi everyone, what's up and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Nikita Tanwani, a pageant coach, model, and former Femina Miss India Andhra Pradesh. And it's been 10 days since the Miss Universe India competition had commenced. Rhea Singha is titled as the current Miss Universe India. Huge congratulations to Rhea, and she's going to be representing India in Mexico later this year. While I'm very excited to see her Miss Universe journey and follow her reign, I feel a lot of us are still hungover from the Miss Universe India high. If you follow me on Instagram, I did go live and share my review of the show, and there was kind of like an online watch party of sorts over on my live. So if you're interested in watching pageants along with me, know that I go live very often and watch it along with you guys. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, don't forget to follow me on my Instagram. And after the show, there were so many videos on YouTube that I saw talking about what happened at Miss Universe India. In my opinion, considering that Glam Anand was doing its first debut show of Miss Universe India, it was a huge success, and of course there's room for improvement. And I feel like there are several people on the internet who have already spoken about the production, the stage, the sound, the lighting, the choreographies, and a lot of other things. However, today I want to do a review of the top 10 question and answer round, something that is most frequently one of the most dreaded segments when it comes to pageants. Now, I love that this time at Miss Universe India we had a top 10 question and answer, and there were 5 winners in total, and I felt like there was a lot more opportunity compared to other competitions. However, there is so much that we can learn by reviewing these answers and understanding what made Rhea Singha win the competition. So if you're interested in knowing the strategy of creating an impactful and winning answer on stage, then go hit the subscribe button for more such content, and now let's get into it.
How do you believe the Miss Universe platform can be used to raise awareness about pressing environmental issues in India?
So it's not the responsibility of our nation, but it's the responsibility of the whole world to take care of the environment. And our platform is the most prestigious platform. So environmental crisis going on around in the world needs to be taken care of. And I think through the platform we should spread the message that we need to take care of our climate crisis and environmental crisis as well. Thank you.
Now, that was definitely not an easy question, because even world leaders are not able to just solve the problem of our environmental crisis. However, I would say that if you're competing in a pageant in 2024 or even 2025, climate change is a topic that is very much expected to be asked about in a beauty competition, simply because it is also a moral responsibility of a beauty pageant contestant to be able to talk about worldly issues that matter, climate change obviously being one of them. Now, if we look at how contestant number 6 answered this question, I'm going to begin with overall her presentation. So you don't want to start questions by answering with and so, because right at the beginning it felt like she wasn't really sure of what she's gonna say. And also throughout her speaking and delivering her answer, I noticed that she was swaying her shoulders a lot, and I think that's something that not a lot of people realize. But this is something that happens during walks too, and it also happens sometimes just because we're not really very mindful of our body language and composure. And so that was something that was distracting to me even as she was speaking. Now, coming to the content of her answer, first of all, she started with and so. And these are words that you want to refrain from when answering a pageant question, because it instantly gives the effect that you're not really sure and confident in which you're answering the question, because what pageant judges are looking for more than anything, and they don't expect pageant contestants to be experts on the topic. However, I am looking for conviction in the way you answer that question. And so we never really saw the conviction and the confidence. And at the same time, the question was, how do you believe this platform can be used? Emphasis being, how do you use the platform? And taking ownership of that responsibility. What contestant number 6 ended up doing, however, is the first sentence of the answer was, "It's not our country's responsibility," which at first it sounded like, why not? Because it's everybody's responsibility. And just because she goes on to further explain that it's the entire world's responsibility, but when we are looking as beauty queens, as role models, what people are looking for in answers is, I want you to be inspiring. I want you to give me hope and lead me. Because people want to follow someone who gives them hope and gives them direction. With this answer, I did not see contestant number 6 as someone who I could look up to and follow, and she would help all of us be able to tackle environmental crisis together. I did not feel that she was building a team against the problem. Rather, it felt like we were more of deflecting the responsibility of it. And of course, we never really concluded with the platform usage in order to solve the crisis. Now, I won't leave you hanging with just providing a review of the answer. I will recommend how she could have answered the question as well. Now, if you are in a beauty pageant competition, one of the easiest and most strategic ways to have answered this question, if your advocacy is also related to environmental issues or climate change or sustainability, that was a sure shot way of connecting your advocacy and what you stand for with how you're going to correlate it with how you're going to use the platform to address the issues. Now, in case you don't have an advocacy which is in the environmental arena, that doesn't mean that we are not all responsible for being able to make a change. And even if you cannot change the world, what you can do is you can definitely make small changes with daily life efforts. And so a strategic way that I think of is, you could have probably talked about the 3 R's, because those are something that everybody can very easily understand, so it would resonate with the masses. She could have talked about reduce, reuse, recycle. You could talk about how this platform has given you a voice and also garnered you an audience where now your voice matters more than before you came into this competition, and that has only instilled this fire in you to make use of the platform to make a difference, whether it's spreading awareness through social media or writing articles in an environmental magazine or just teaching young children to make intelligent choices, such as how festivals like Diwali can be celebrated without the crackers and the pollution. When we look at Holi, for instance, in India, that is how you're going to utilize the platform of Miss Universe India to create change, at least within our country. In the case of Holi, we can use more natural colors. And so those are just small decisions that you can take on a daily basis. Now, it really depends on what your story is, what your profile is, and what connects with your personal life the most. But for instance, if I had to answer this question, I would probably talk about teaching our children that long-term planet protection is more important than short-term gratification. And so if you inserted that kind of phrase into your answer, that would also become like your impactful sentence in the answer, because every on-stage answer does need a punchline. And so I was hoping for something along those lines in this answer. Let's move on to the next question.
India has a rich cultural heritage. How can we preserve and promote it in the face of globalization?
I believe that India is a very civilized and diverse country, and its diversity around the globe is and the culture about India is what we are known for. But as we see that India is cultured, but also we are stepping into a new generation. So it is important to carry our culture alongside and also having the essence of modernized culture. And this is what I think about it. Thank you so much.
Now, personally, I felt that Archana's question was a lot easier than the last question. However, I don't think this answer really covered what the question was asking for either. However, there was a good start to answering. She did talk about I believe, which is a good usage instead of I suppose, I guess, or I think, and definitely So you don't want to use words that don't really fit in. But then right after that, she did say that India is a very civilized and diverse country. Now here, I do question the usage of the word civilized, because I think she meant to go for cultured, because aren't most countries civilized? And so that was a little strange to me, and I felt that probably she had like a brain fog moment there. But going on further, I don't think we ever talked about how she was going to preserve and promote Indian culture at a global level. Of course, there is so much awareness and even appreciation for Indian culture when it comes to the global stage. If I was to answer this exact same question, in the face of globalization, I believe that it is even more important for us to preserve, protect, and share and promote our Indian culture. As an Indian model and content creator living in the United States, I do my best to share my culture with people that I meet from around the world by staying rooted in Indian traditions and putting a westernized and modern twist to it. And that's what I feel that Archana was probably going to go for, because she said, this is a new generation. And that was like the hook for me. I was like, yes, tell me more. But then I think we kind of lost the track there. Furthermore, being in this profession has taught me that it is possible to educate the masses through the usage of social media, technology, music, and arts. And if we make a conscious decision to prioritize Indian heritage in all forms of media and communication that we use without glorifying the Western world to the extent that we do, and instead embracing cross cultural exchanges by exposing our youth to diverse cultures outside of the country at a young age, we should be able to inculcate the love for our tradition and our heritage in our youth, for them to want to protect it. And we can achieve that by giving more opportunity to Indian artists, because I believe that our artists are the key nurturers of our culture. Now, that is just my take on this specific question. For someone who is perhaps from a different profession and industry altogether, would have a completely different opinion and also an answer to this question. So what I want to make sure you understand here is, I started my answer by saying, as an Indian model who lives in the United States and content creator, and the reason I said that is because that's what my background is. So I always mention this in coaching sessions with my clients when we work on interview prep, is that not just are you supposed to answer the question on stage, but also talk about yourself. And you have to find a way that the answer that you're saying not just answers the question, but also tells the judges a little bit about you. And if you can achieve that harmony and balance in your answer, that is going to be a sure shot, impactful, and winning answer, because it's engaging. And so I would believe your answer more, because now I know your background. I understand where you're coming from. And that is why you don't need to over explain, justify, or defend your answer too much. I am in support of artists because that's what I am. But somebody else who's probably, let's say, from the tech field would have a very different perception to how to promote and preserve our culture.
My question to you is, what is your personal definition of beauty, and how do you believe it differs from societal standards?
Thank you so much for your question, sir. I think this is a really incredible question, and I want to just describe a quote to answer it. One day, may we not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. This is a quote. Thank you. This is a quote by Martin Luther King Jr., and it's one that I heard a lot growing up. But when I was younger, something that I struggled with was colorism. I was not considered beautiful due to my dusky skin or savli skin. Every time I would meet extended family, friends, I would be told, "Arey, color thoda down hai." And initially it made me feel really unconfident about myself. But as I've grown, I've realized that beauty is so much more than skin deep. Beauty is about your character. It is about your resilience. It is about your growth. And when I realized these things, I saw the beauty within me, and I am so grateful to be standing here in front of all of you today with all these amazing contestants with me on stage and all the girls that have worked so hard behind me. So thank you so much for this honor. Thank you for helping me see how beautiful I am as a result of being here. Thank you.
First of all, I gotta say, I love the question, and I was hoping that there was gonna be a beauty related question. And of course, it is a predictable question as well. So it wasn't too out of the box. And Chavi did an incredible job at answering it. In case of Chavi, I don't think I would change the content of the answer too much. However, as much as I was rooting for her, what I would want to change, and I think it kind of worked for her because there was no 30-second time limit, if you notice, at the top 10 Q&A of Miss Universe India, which is pretty different from other countries' Miss Universe national competitions. And so keeping that in mind, I felt that that was the reason why Chavi could even go on a different tangent, interact with the audience and all of those things, because if it was a time restricted Q&A portion, there was no way you were going to be able to do all of that. And so if I had to change her answer and make it a lot more structured and formal for an on-stage setting, because that's perhaps what I felt is kept her from winning the competition, is I would remove the part where she talks about her visiting extended family. And it's more of, I wouldn't add to her answer, but rather I would deduct from it. And so my feedback for this contestant would be know when to stop, and just a little bit of practice of perhaps sticking to a certain time limit. Something that I read about on stage Q&A prep in By the Time You Read This, the memoir by Chesley Christ and her mother, who later published it, is how Chesley was preparing for the onstage competition of Miss USA. And she talks about how she had always made sure that her answers were restricted to 25 seconds and not 30 seconds. And that's the kind of preparation that went into her winning Miss USA and the legendary performance that she had. And so that tells us a lot about how important timing is. And so while there was nothing wrong with what Chavi was saying, it was just not gonna work, let's say, if you had the exact same approach at Miss Universe. And as a national director, that's something I would keep in mind when judging and giving the score. If I had to answer the same question, I would have chosen to use the quote that no matter how plain a woman might be, if truth and honesty are written across her face, she is beautiful. To me personally, I have always been taught from a very young age that it is more important to be a good person than to be a successful person. Now, whether that's being a beautiful person, because so much of our society equates success with beauty, but for me, having unwavering values and principles regardless of the circumstance is what beauty means to me. And that answer is personal to me because those are my values and that is what is my inner compass pointing towards. And so everyone's definition of beauty is going to be different depending on what their childhood has been like, what was being told to you about feeling beautiful from the inside when you were growing up, what was your upbringing like. And so take a moment to reflect and think about what beauty means to you.
How would you approach the challenge of reducing plastic waste in India?
Thank you so much for your question, sir. I believe that we live in a generation where we are striving for technological advancement so much, we lag behind what has been taught. It's very natural for kids to be taught that we have to run against marks. We have been learning about environmental change for the longest time, and yet we are still facing the crisis. Why? Because the kids are taught that you have to score marks and not be practical about it. So I think our first approach is hell more conversation about it. Approach our kids in a different way, that we have to act on it more than just learn in our books. And that is the first step on how we tackle environmental crisis and plastic wastage. Thank you so much.
So Daisy was asked the question about plastic waste. As confident as she was, and it was a beautiful answer, what you might not have realized if you're just watching pageants probably and haven't been on the judging or coaching side of it, is that Daisy's answer could have been the answer to any question. This happens a lot at beauty pageants in the onstage question and answer segment, more often than you would imagine, where a contestant has pre-prepared an answer and they plan to perhaps modify and make it unique depending on the question, which is a good strategy. And in fact, I coach my clients for the same as well. We've seen that pattern work at Miss USA for the last couple of years too. However, the execution did not really work out, I felt, for this particular contestant. And if you pay close attention, you realize that the answer doesn't really talk about how to reduce plastic waste, but rather why we don't focus on reducing plastic waste, and those are completely different conversations. I mentioned earlier in this video how anyone could have utilized the 3 R's, and the reason I say that this would have worked in this specific question as well is because when you give bullet points, when you have the implementation of the rule of 3, which is a great public speaking technique used by several speakers and orators and onstage beauty queens as well. The rule of 3 would be the easiest way to make an impact. You could have the 3 R's and they don't even have to be reduce, reuse, recycle. Honestly, you could make up your own 3 R's, your own 3 P's, S's, or anything. You could talk about not using single-use plastic. You could talk about making sure that our laws are more stringent with respect to how the plastic is disposed of. So our waste management needs to be better. Perhaps creating campaigns that talk about carrying your own clothing bags or perhaps your own boxes, and making people more aware of what a sustainable lifestyle can look like, and that it's not that difficult to make those changes in your lives. I follow a bunch of content creators, in fact, who teach you how you can have a sustainable lifestyle and just like the more mundane, regular life changes that you can make to your life. And so even if you don't plan on going in that much depth in the answer, because of course it's an on-stage question, I was looking for keywords like sustainability and single-use plastic and waste management, and we didn't find any of those keywords in the answer either. The answer was in fact leaning more towards what's wrong with the education system of the country, which was so far from what the question was.
If you were to win Miss Universe India, what would be your advocacy project? And how would you implement it? What are your career aspirations? And how do you envision Miss Universe India helping you achieve them?
As a college student, I worked on a documentary film over the atrocities faced by the transgender people. And as soon as I entered their premises, looking at the lack of basic sanitation and food facilities disheartened me. So if given a chance to do an advocacy, I would really want to make sure that they are able to stand on their own 2 feet so that they can earn their own bread and butter. Maybe by opening a small cafe where I'll employ them so that they don't have to beg. Because I really believe that इज्जत का एक निवाला किसी भी भीख के महाभोग को मार देता है.
This question was asked to Bhuvneshwari. Now, I do want to address the fact that I think Urvashi Rautela asked her 2 questions instead of 1. And maybe there was like a reading error that happened there, because the second part of this question was not supposed to be asked to Bhuvneshwari, but instead it was later on asked to Sushmita Roy in the same competition. So I think the judge kind of revealed one of the questions. But yeah, that's not the only thing that happened at the competition like that either. But if we look at how Bhuvneshwari handled it, she obviously addressed and answered the first question, which was, if you had an advocacy, what would it be? And first of all, it was such a straightforward and direct question that I was taken aback by how simple it was, because everybody has an advocacy when you're competing at a competition like Miss Universe India. While her answer was great, I loved the storytelling and the personal engagement that she talks about. And of course, it's such a genuine and authentic answer because she really did work on a documentary. However, it was a sensitive topic that she brought up, considering, one, there were trans contestants competing in the competition. And so to generalize didn't sound like such a good idea to me personally, because there are women who are trans and competing at Miss Universe India. And to generalize that they don't need to beg, it just sounded tone deaf a little to me. And it's something that you have to keep in mind, especially when you're a public figure and saying stuff like that in front of a large audience. And also the choice of words. You cannot go ahead and say, maybe I'll open up a cafe. I don't need a maybe. You're in top 10 of Miss Universe India. I need to know what exactly you already have done, and not make it sound like it's a tentative plan that you might do if you got the opportunity to do an advocacy, which is what Bhuvneshwari ended up saying, because an advocacy is something you should already be doing, not something you're going to do after the competition, and the organization doesn't give you the opportunity to do so. It's the fact that you have an advocacy, and that is the reason you came to the competition in the first place, so that you can take it to the next level if you end up winning, because then it gets you a bigger audience, it gets you more resources and stuff like that. And so if you are competing for any competition and doesn't even have to be a Miss Universe national competition, this is a question that every single person should be able to answer, which is what would be your advocacy and how would you implement it? And it's crucial that you have a very well planned out blueprint where you are able to talk about the impact that you have already achieved and the impact and implementation program so that you get to the desired outcome of your advocacy project. Now, if an advocacy project sounds daunting to you, don't worry, I have the perfect solution for you, which will help you to take your concept and idea of an advocacy to a proper, organized, structured project with a team. And this project might also be profitable. If you want to know how you can do that and learn with me, then click on the link in the description box below where you can find my Build Your Advocacy Project online course, a completely self-paced course that you can do on your own time and you have lifetime access to. And you also get a one-on-one call with me to discuss your project ideas.
How would you inspire young women in India to embrace their unique beauty and pursue their dreams?
As someone who has returned to pageantry, and even after achieving somewhat a lot in the commercial field and working in television commercials, I didn't let my dream die. And I kept pursuing pageantry, and here I am, after so many tries, in the top 10, speaking my heart. And as a professional badminton world champion's daughter who had won the world championship last year, in his almost late 50s, I would say that you can achieve your dreams whenever. So don't stop chasing them. Believe in them and take risks. Because if you don't throw the dice, you'll never get a 6. Thank you.
That has to be one of my favorite answers from the competition. I love the ending statement that Ojasvi Sharma makes where she says that if you don't roll the dice, you'll never get a 6. And for good reason, that answer is going pretty viral on Instagram as well. Now, I love the fact that she had such an engaging answer. This was a fun fact about her that the judges didn't know, and I'm sure that despite the fact that she didn't make it to top 5, and I'll address why that did not happen, her answer was still memorable. Now, I did work with Ojasvi for interview prep and onstage Q&A, and we covered, I think, at least 4 to 5 coaching sessions before the competition. And something that I always teach my coaching clients is to be able to engage. Like I've been talking about drawing from your personal life. Now, in this case, what Ojasvi has done is she talks about her father who was able to fulfill his dreams even in his late 50s. And that is definitely inspiring. It doesn't have to be you, but of course, being around that person and being his daughter, I'm sure she's taken a lot from him. And that was interesting to know in that moment. Not just did she talk about herself, she also talked about the person who raised her. And that makes me want to rely on her more. However, what Ojasvi missed while answering is there were 2 parts to the question. And the first one was, how would you inspire young women to embrace their unique beauty? And I feel that's the part of the question that didn't really make sense. And also she wasn't very confident while answering that part of the question, because she, even while talking about her own achievements, she went on to say, I have somewhat and then a lot. And I've talked about like not using words like maybe. And so this is just another example of not sounding confident. And when you are a beauty queen and when you're looking to inspire young women, one of the things that we as women need to get more comfortable with is to be able to talk about our achievements with a lot more conviction rather than trying to downplay them to suit someone else's emotions. And so I really wish that she had been more confident when she talked about her success in the commercial industry. So the first half of the answer wasn't that strong. She did pick up towards the second half, but I guess it was just not strong enough to get her to top 5 because this year's batch was really competitive. If I had to answer the same question, I would also draw from my own story, and I would say that as someone who grew up extremely underconfident due to the color of her skin and her body hair, which is something that women have been shamed for a long time now. It has taken me over a decade to be able to embrace my inner beauty and know for a fact that I am beautiful because of who I am on the inside and not because of what I look like, because outer beauty is temporary. To all the young women watching this right now, I would like to tell you that your imperfections are in fact your most beautiful quality, and that is what makes you unique. And if you have a dream, run after it, because if you don't build your dream, somebody else will hire you to build theirs. And throughout this journey, remember that you weren't meant to be pretty. You were meant to burn down the earth and graffiti the sky and fulfill and live the life of your dreams. And so that is how I would give a message to young women, because this is all coming from a place of having read a lot of books that talk about empowering women. And I feel that through the platform of beauty pageants, the kind of general notions that I would want to break is to tell women that don't be so grateful and you're not meant to be pretty. I don't care if I'm pretty because I'm not doing this for you. And so from a young age, we need to start demanding that young girls ask for more, say no, and do what they want rather than trying to fit and people please others, because that's what this generation needs. And so that's how I would have approached the same question. But I'm sharing my answers, hoping that watching this video, you will get an idea or a source of inspiration on how you would be able to answer the same question based off of your life story.
What is your stance on climate change? And what steps would you take to promote sustainable practices in India?
I would like to start this question with a quote that says, "When the last fish is killed and the last tree cut, that is when man would realize that we cannot eat money." I believe in the face of industrialization, we have lost so many forests to deforestation, and we're losing out on our environment. It is very, very important to realize that no rights matter unless and until we're not alive. Humans are required for human rights. Nature is required to keep us alive. And I would like to promote climate justice through this platform by raising my voice about the things that actually matter, and by doing my part in contributing to making a change when it comes to climate. I would go out and I would make sure that I use this platform to clean our environment and to do my part and to spread awareness so that people could do theirs, because all of us together can really make it happen. Thank you.
Pranjal definitely had one of the best answers until now in the top 10 Q&A. And I love the fact that she answered both parts of the question. The first line itself had such an impact, and I loved that because that in one sentence summarized her stance. If this was a 30-second Q&A round, I think that sentence itself would have sufficed because we didn't have a time limit. She kind of elaborated just a tad bit too much on her stance on climate change, and that's what I felt kind of distracted her, because when we come to the second part of the question, despite the fact that she did answer it, it was just not clear enough, and to go out and clean the environment is not the kind of answer we were looking for. What I would have done is just changed the second part of her answer and have said that in order to promote sustainable practices, it's imperative that we all shift the mindset and go from being consumers to being caretakers. And then she could have continued with the rest of the answer, which said that each one of us, if we all come together, we have the power to have small changes eventually have a ripple effect and create a big change. And I could feel that there were a few additional sentences just because she couldn't articulate what she was wanting to say. It was a very small gap in the answer, and I think that's probably what kept her from winning the competition, because I was rooting for her. If you watched my previous favorites videos, she was gradually climbing up the ladder and definitely one to watch out for. And I love the fact that she also has first runner-up. Looking at her pageant experience in the past, to get first runner-up at Miss Universe India this year was not an easy feat, and Pranjal has done exceptionally well.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure tonight, who would it be and why?
I'll have to give it a thought because there are so many people that inspire me. But I think Ahilia Bai Holkar, who was my national costume inspiration, would definitely have to be one. My advocacy is about skilling up individuals. Youngsters who have so many skills, yet they don't have the power of communication, which is why they miss out on the opportunity of success in what they truly love. That is where Ahilia Bai Holkar was powerful enough 300 years ago and powered through, brought women up at a time when feminism wasn't even a thing. And she made it happen for her and the women around her. So I would love to choose Ahilia Bai Holkar. Thank you.
Thank you. Great answer.
Whenever there's a hypothetical question like that, hypothetical questions are never about what your answer is. They're always about your spontaneity and, in a lot of cases, how it aligns with your personal brand and strategy coming into the competition. Because in a split second, if you can bring in the consistency in branding and messaging, there's nothing more appealing to the judges than that. And that's exactly what Rhea Singha has done here. The fact that there's consistency in the role model behind her national costume and the person that she chose to have dinner with in her finale answer makes you believe that her advocacy is not just something that she talks about, but something that she has brought in as a personal brand and messaging consistently throughout the competition. She talks about youth empowerment in her introduction video. She talks about that by portraying that through her national costume. And then she brings it back again with her finale answer. Now, the thing is, I do believe that irrespective of whatever question was going to be thrown at Rhea Singha, she would make sure that the judges know this about her. What she does is she talks about her advocacy, even though the question didn't ask for it. And that is what strategy is. I keep saying this over and over again inside my coaching sessions, and I've said this so many times in this video today, that you have to be able to talk about yourself in the onstage Q&A round. What are you going to talk about? Now that comes from lots and lots of preparation, and Rhea Singha definitely has the experience to back that up, and she obviously has prepared and put in the work for it. And so despite the fact that she took a few seconds, which I like, the candor that she used to lead up to her answer, if I had to give her any feedback, however, is while the strategy is exactly what works at Miss Universe, she could probably work on how high she goes with the tone when she wants to make impact and when she wants to emphasize something, because the end of the answer was a sudden shift in energy levels. At times there's an ease that I'm looking for, and I'm yet to see that.
What challenges do women in India face today, and what steps can be taken to empower them?
Thank you for the question, sir. I think the challenges that we are facing most is fear, and it's been escalating since the past few months over the amounting number of assault and rape cases that are being reported. And it breaks my heart to think of the many others that have gone silenced. And I believe that if I can take this platform and encourage women to speak up, to stand for justice, and to be true and strong to themselves, I believe we could truly bring justice and make a better and safer world for the women in India. Thank you.
Now, Ropofo's answer, I will say, if not the best, was definitely one of the bravest answers that night on that competition. And the fact that she said that, and perhaps I feel that a part of her probably would know that this answer, and this has just been my experience, this kind of answer, when she said that, I love her for it, but I also knew that she would not end up winning. And it's not something I agree with necessarily, and I feel like that's something that the Indian pageant system could change. It's the fact that whenever there is mention of words like assault and rape, things don't seem to work out for that contestant. And I have heard in pageant systems that contestants are told not to use those words because it doesn't sound so nice. And it's unfortunate that we care more about aesthetics than what actually deserves our attention. And I think that is why I love Ropofo for, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, for having the courage to take a stand and speak about the elephant in the room. However, if I had to improve the answer and solely from a coach's perspective, I would say that what would you do in order to empower the women, or what steps can be taken? That part of the question was still, it wasn't addressed as much as what is the biggest challenge faced by women. And I would instead say that the biggest challenge I believe women are facing in the country today is gender-based violence. And it is high time that we stop calling it a women's issue and call it a human rights issue, because gender-based violence is a threat to peace and security, not just in our country but all across the world. And a country's success is rooted in the seeds of its women and its children. In my opinion, the only way to empower women in a way that they feel safe and we put an end to the epidemic that is gender-based violence is to let women speak up, to refuse to be silenced, and to have not just women but men, and men with power, to take a stand against the epidemic, to ensure that there is a zero tolerance policy when it comes to violence against women. Note that what I have done is, instead of using certain words like assault and rape, which is not appreciated by pageant organizations, move the conversation to gender-based violence, because sexual assault is also not the only issue. It rather, in fact, falls under the umbrella of GBV, which also talks about domestic abuse, which also talks about marital rape. And so if we were to use the word of gender-based violence, we would be able to, one, address a lot bigger problem, and so that our voice is not being shut down and the mic is not being taken away from us, because that's what I feel has been happening when we use words that make the other gender uncomfortable.
What are your career aspirations, and how do you envision Miss Universe India helping you achieve them?
I belong to the health industry. I have studied dietetics and I have spent a lot of time in the hospital with patients, literally fighting every single day for their lives. And that is what has made me choose my advocacy, which is to promote health, hygiene and nutrition amongst the youth, especially children, because I believe that basic health care should be a necessity. It's not a luxury, and everyone deserves to have the basic health care in their life. So if I happen to win Miss Universe India tonight, I would use my voice to raise as much awareness as I can to make this world a better place with the health education. Thank you so much.
And the last question was given to Sushmita Roy, who did get into the top 5 of Miss Universe India competition. And she talks about her advocacy, and I know Sushmita personally as well. And since 2019, she has had a consistent advocacy. In fact, if you have watched some of my OG videos from 2019, I do speak about a contestant whose advocacy was promoting hygiene and how that project got a huge boom when the COVID pandemic happened, simply because it was so much more relevant in that year. And that contestant is in fact Sushmita Roy. Very, very well deserved, and also exceptionally beautiful answer. If I had to change anything with Sushmita's answer, it would probably be the polishing of a few grammatical errors in that answer. And I think that's the only thing that I would feel would be holding her back from representing us internationally, because of course your grammatical errors in the English language, if you were to represent us outside India, would be something that a national director would look into. But she does get full points on the overall delivery, the structure, the genuineness and authenticity, and how consistently she's been advocating for the same thing over and over again since 2019. So that was my review of the top 10 Q&A segment of Miss Universe India. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you got a lot of useful tips and learned from my personal answers that I would have given to the exact same questions as well. If you want to work with me and get trained for your next pageant, I am just a text message away, so feel free to slide into my DMs. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy this kind of content. Let me know what other Q&A segments from other competitions you would like for me to review. And as always, I love you guys so much, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye.